born in Mudge. Oh, about 96 years ago to Mayor Dunn and Brother Lipschitz. The Lipschitz family, they were Alexander Hasidim, and if I remember correctly, one of his uncles was a Dayan in Mudge. As a child, they lived in Hasidic yeshivas, and also, if I'm not mistaken, he once told me that he took a test. He was planning on going to the famous yeshiva Stachel in Berlin. But unfortunately, like many other boys his age, Hitler and Moshe had other plans. Like I mentioned, his family was a long line of illustrious B'nai Torah, Talmidei Chachamim. He used to tell me that with first Yisrael Lipschitz was an ancestor. He was also very, very proud to talk about the grandson of Yitzchak Hamburger, who was a big Rav. He had another uncle who wrote a very chashuv sefer. But the person Zaidi looked up to and admired, and perhaps loved more than anyone else in the world, was his father, the Mayor Dunn, who I happen to be named after. We had a very special bond, and he always used to remind me who his father was. His father, Mayor Dunn, wrote many letters, and he shared the Torah with some of the greatest minds of the previous generation, the Rogatchover, Chaim Levine. The one thing I always think of when he talked about his father, he spoke of him, was famous Gemara in Saita when he talks about Yaakov appearing to Yosef as he's being seduced by Eshes Potiphar, and he sees the Demus Yukna Shel Aviv of his father, and he runs away. Zaidi lived his life with his father's, the presence of his father, the picture of his father constantly before him. That was his entire being. Zaidi spent the war in ghetto, in the Lodge ghetto, together with his brother Chilik. Shizku, Erech Yom, Tevim, Aruchim, Shekin Tavanats from his family. And they were in the ghetto until it was liquidated. And then he ended up in the camps. He was in Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen. He had a tattoo with a number on his arm. He was literally in hell on earth. I had the privilege, and also the regret, about 15 years ago, spent an afternoon with my wife and my grandfather and my grandmother. We went to Yad Vashem. It wasn't exactly what I had thought I wanted to do, but I asked him, and surprisingly enough, he said yes. We spent hours there, hours going through pictures, hours going through names, and he literally took us back in time to a place, streets, shtiblach, people. Every once in a while he would correct one of the pictures. The caption was wrong. It didn't take place here, it took place there. I remember when they took this. I remember being here. He was able to point out people that he knew in the pictures. I regret not being able to record at the time, being able to physically record. I ran home afterwards. I tried to write down as much as I could. For that, all I can say is thank you. After the war, Zaidi married Bobby in the DP camps, and then they arrived in Chicago, and they literally did not know a single person. The only person that they knew in Chicago by that time had moved to Los Angeles, which was always a bone that I picked with them why they didn't go to Los Angeles. But they stayed, because that's what he did. Zaidi didn't look back. He built a family. He was able to see children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And even though he wasn't able to see them, but actually a week from now, he had great-grandchildren. And they'll be coming here. Everyone is shown Torah mitzvahs. 5 generations are here today because of you. Your will to survive, your will to live, your will to find meaning in the darkest of the dark. After the war, Zaidi was a reporter at the Nuremberg trials for a German paper. Zaidi spoke and understood at least 7 languages. He spoke English, Hebrew, Yiddish, German, Polish, Russian, Aramaic, Arabic, and even a little French. That's actually 9. And many of them he spoke fluently. His English was so good, eventually he was able to earn his PhD. Survivor and immigrant who actually didn't speak or read a word of English until about 1947. Zaidi had an unbelievable memory. It was a truly gifted mind. Zaidi wrote numerous svarim and articles, and not easy svarim. Hard svarim. Zaidi mostly concentrated. He loved the words of the Rishonim. Growing up, I knew them just by knowing the names, because he was always busy with them. I thought they were people. Ibn Ezra, Rabbeinu Bachya, Rambam, Ramban. These were the people that he spoke to, and they spoke to him. Actually, I didn't realize until tonight, but you actually shared the yard site with one of the greatest of the Rishonim, the Rambam. I'm sure he's up there waiting to greet you and answer all your questions. But most of all, if I had to describe my grandfather, and he was a tremendous master. Wherever he went, he gravitated to svarim, libraries, rare works. Wherever he was in Israel, you know where he was? Hebrew University, in the library. He went to Miami, he was in the Kollel. In Chicago, he was teaching, learning, preparing, and he was always in his office. You walked into the house, you knew Zaidi was downstairs, and Bobby was upstairs. You didn't have to ask, you knew that's where he was. He was addicted to learning, addicted to knowledge. Nothing else mattered to him except for that. Tremendous memories of Zaidi. As a young boy, I had to write an essay. And I think I was in 6th grade or 7th grade. And it was a contest throughout the whole entire city of Chicago. And you wrote an essay, and they picked a certain amount, and you won a prize, you won money. The essay I wrote about my grandfather. At the time, what he meant to me, what always meant to me. In a few days from now, we're going to read the Ve'el Shmais. And the question asked, a very famous question, is why in the beginning of the book of Shemos repeats what was already said at the end of Bereshit. So we know who came to Mitzrayim. We know who came down. We know who the tribes were. There's no reason to repeat it. Zaidi was a Baki in TikTok, amongst other things. I don't know TikTok. I never learned TikTok. I still don't understand it. A few things Zaidi used to teach me. One thing I remember him teaching me, I'm going to maybe use this to answer the question. We know that the Vav has 2 functions. Sometimes it's a Vav HaChibur, connects things, and sometimes it's a Vav HaMitapech. You can turn a word that is future tense into past tense. Yomar becomes Vayomer, and he said in past tense. But Zaidi must tell me that the Vav is not 2 separate functions. It's really one function, they're one and the same. That when you change a word from past tense to future tense, what you're doing is you're connecting the past with the future. That is a chibur, that is a connection. And it's a connection that can't be broken because it goes beyond time, it's connecting 2 points. The words of the Ve'el Shmo starts with a Vav, is it's not just connecting it, but it's connecting it in also a literal sense, that the past and the future are connected as one. Vav, as we know in Hebrew, means the word, it's a hook. It connects 2 objects. It makes it into one continuous being, one thing. If you don't connect two things, if you don't connect your time, if you don't connect the periods between your past to your future, to the future, then you're really left with nothing. Zaydi, you were our Vav. You connected us to our past, thus giving us our future. You were the link to a world 96 years ago which none of us can imagine. You lived through so many things and so much. And without that Vav HaChibur, that is also a Vav HaMitapech, there's no way we could ever understand anything. We would not be here 5 generations without you. I just want to end and thank the Asfed and everybody who took care of him for the last few years and he was here in Israel. And all their Mesiras Nefesh and everything they gave to him. Specifically, I want to thank my uncle, my aunt, Avra and Rosie. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to see them go to make Aliyah. It was a very hard trip. Rosie's been through a lot, and Avra used to come every Friday. Thank you for myself, for my family. Thank you for everything you still do for Bobby. She should look good well. Today I just want to ask you, Mechila, for myself, for my family, for not treating you sometimes with proper cover, for not coming as often as I should have, for not visiting, for not being there. I hope you give me life on me. Ila Momis Lanetzach, Umocha Shem, Kidim, Be'al Kopanu, Kamas Abiyos, Be'al Kopanu.